Bluey might be coming to an end with the announced movie, but many questions are still up in the air about it. Because if we're going to see an extra-long episode of Bluey, what stories, or more importantly, what new characters might appear in the movie?
Boing.
One of the new characters who might show up in the movie is probably the one people are most curious about. I'm talking about Brandy's husband. If you don't remember, Brandy is Chili's sister, Bluey, and Bingo's aunt, who visits the girls in the episode with the zebra and leopard pajamas, leading Bingo to give an Oscar-worthy role-playing performance. Everyone finds themselves being hunted by Bingo the leopard, while a personal drama involving Brandy unfolds beneath the episode's plot. All she wants most in life is to be a mother, but due to some cruel twist of fate, it's impossible. She's infertile. Bluey understands this because Chili makes an analogy using the leopard pajamas that Bluey wanted but didn't fit her, explaining that there was nothing that could be done to fix the problem. However, in Brandy's case, it seems something could be done about her problem because in the episode The Sign, right before the wedding, when the healers are welcoming the guests, there's a brief scene of Brandy arriving at the party with a big pregnant belly. But then, the questions remain. Who is Brandy's husband? How did she resolve her infertility? Could he be a doctor? Did she go through artificial insemination? Could the movie's plot revolve around Brandy preparing to welcome her first puppy? I need to know. So grab your snack and a drink, because today, we're diving into other pressing questions about Bluey characters who might appear in the new movie, here on Zigzag. Still talking about the unforgettable wedding from the episode The Sign, we have another member of the Healer family who could make an appearance in the movie Rad and Frisky's Puppy. Season 3 revolved around the big moment of their wedding and showed us how Bandit's older brother, Uncle Rad, has certain communication issues in his relationship with Frisky. She almost called off the wedding because he didn't tell her he was planning to move away from Brisbane after they got married. This could be one of the Healer family's personal dramas we might see in the movie, as it takes a storyline we're already familiar with and gives us the next chapter, so to speak. And nothing stops this from happening while Brandy is having her first puppy too, since many Bluey episodes have multiple storylines happening simultaneously. This way, we could see how Bluey, now more mature, helps Bingo understand that they're about to have two new cousins, one from Brandy and one from Frisky. We could also meet some members of Frisky's family, like her parents or possible siblings, or something like that. If this idea excites you and makes you unable to wait for the movie, then type the hashtag #BlueyMovie in the comments to let us know. We can't talk about characters who might appear without mentioning Bluey's puppy, can we? He, or she, we don't know yet, appears in the final scene of the last episode of Season 3. This episode solidifies the theory that Bluey is maturing right before our eyes, as we see her give up her own game to ease the load on Bandit so he can watch his sport on TV. But they drive this point home even further by showing Bluey as a literal adult at the end of the episode. Since we already know Bluey is a show that loves time jumps, flashbacks, and that sort of thing, the movie's story could focus on Bluey as an adult, telling a story from her childhood that's relevant to what's happening with her puppy in the present. This way, the movie would stay true to the show's style, blending a childlike storyline with an adult one, both running in parallel, with an important life lesson that resonates with audiences of all ages. It would also be a great way to show Bandit and Chili as older parents, and especially an adult Bingo, who theoretically became an archaeologist like her dad. If that photo, on the side of the door, just before Chili greets adult Bluey. Speaking of archaeologists, there's a big one in the Healer family, whose work we haven't seen much of. Bandit! From what little we know about his job, we can conclude he's an archaeologist. After all, dogs love digging up bones, don't they? The first time we see Bandit working is in the episode Yoga Ball, where he's in his office, surrounded by artifacts and items from other cultures and times. Another big hint about his job comes from the episode Curry Quest, where, at the very end, we see a photo of him at an archaeological site where he spent 6 weeks working. Lastly, we have the Minnesota Archaeology, where he gives a lecture about a discovery, a femur from the first dog that walked on 2 legs over 4 million years ago. It would be fun to show Bandit's bosses, not only because there are some unresolved issues with major consequences for Bandit. He declined a promotion at the end of the sign, but also because, at the end of the minisode, he can't resist his canine instincts and starts gnawing on the fossilized bone he himself uncovered. I think Bandit owes his bosses an explanation, don't you? You know who doesn't owe anyone an explanation? People who click the subscribe button. And if you hit the notification bell, you earn bonus points. Since we're talking a lot about the future, we can't forget certain characters that the show has only shown a few times, but could make a brief or more lasting appearance in the long life of our favorite healer pup. The first one, of course, has to be Jean-Luc, the dark blue Labrador who built a fort with Bluey, even with the language barrier, as neither of them spoke the same language. Jean-Luc is French and was on vacation with his family when he met Bluey, and together they planted a tree. At the end of the episode, when we see teenage Bluey sitting down to read under the same tree they planted, Jean-Luc reappears. That's where the theory comes from, that Bluey and Jean-Luc might have ended up as a couple. Whether or not that theory gets confirmed, one thing's for sure. This is a character who should show up at least one more time in the movie or in any future episodes that may follow. Other past characters who could reappear are Mia and the Captain, two older dogs who were introduced in the episode that marked Mackenzie's debut in the series. These two had instant chemistry and probably became a couple after that day. They could return for a brief appearance, especially since Mia was important enough for Bluey to dedicate a drawing to her on the fridge. Look in the upper left corner of the fridge. And speaking of past characters who could reappear, there's one in particular who needs to show up, especially if we're talking about Bluey's puppy. Since we already know Grandpa Bandit falls victim to his grandson's games, it's easy to imagine he'd use the same parenting tactics he once used with his daughters. That's why Unicorse would be the perfect character to make one last appearance. I can't help but wonder how adult Bluey and Bingo would react to seeing Unicorse again after all these years. Would they laugh? Or would they think something like, "Oh no, here comes Bandit with this thing again?" If we're going to show Brandy pregnant and can theorize that the movie might introduce her husband, there's no way they wouldn't give us at least a glimpse of what Aunt Brandy's puppy will look like, right? This would undoubtedly be one of the movie's most emotional moments, the scene that hits the hardest. We know how much being a mom means to Brandy, and seeing her hold her puppy for the first time would be a guaranteed tearjerker. Just like when Bandit takes down the "for sale" sign in front of their house at the end of the sign. If seeing her pregnant already got me emotional, I think if I see her holding her puppy, I might literally explode on the spot. Now, what was going on in Joe Brum's mind for him to come up with an idea good enough to spark a Bluey movie? That, we can only speculate. Tell me, what characters did I forget? Let me know what you think will happen in the Bluey movie in the comments, because I really want to hear your thoughts.